Greetings once again, students. We continue with our course on financial computing. Now we are proceeding with Excel. Today we look at the VLOOKUP function. The VLOOKUP function, where the V stands for vertical lookup function, it looks for a value in the leftmost column of a table and then returns a value in the same row from another column you specify. Similar to the VLOOKUP is the HLOOKUP function. The HLOOKUP is the horizontal lookup. That means in this case, you are looking for the same value that you specify from a row you specify in the table or array. We use these two functions where we have got linked tables that contain common information and they've got a key or a value that connects the two tables. You'd find that useful in many maybe bank accounts or where you've got your sales tables and your customer tables. You want to combine information from those two tables. There are so many uses of the VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP functions, and I would like to recommend that you attend to the Excel spreadsheet examples that we have as part of this course. The syntax is easy to explain. You start with the function name, which is HLOOKUP, and the parameters that you pass in there is the value that you want to look up. You click on that cell of that value that you want to look up. And the table array, this is a set of rows and columns where your data is. And then you can specify the row index number of the output where you want the feedback to come from, which is on the other table. The range, every parameter you find which is in square brackets is optional in Excel. Thank you. We can also move on to some of these handy functions. We have the match function, which searches for a specified item in a range of cells and then returns the relative position of that item in the index function. It returns a value or the reference to a value from within a table or a range. When you want to know the index, that is where a particular value is, the row number and the column number, that's where you can specify that using the index, which is the address. Let's move on to another powerful aspect of Microsoft Excel, which is data analysis, where we look at tables, pivot tables, charts, goal seek, solver add-in, Monte Carlo simulations, and data analysis toolpack. Many of you may not even have the data analysis toolpack on your Excel if you are not heavy users of Excel. You may not have used it before, but it is such a powerful tool that helps you to analyze your data set. The data in Excel does appear like it's already in the form of tables, yet there is already an inbuilt object called an Excel table, which makes it easy for you to carry out functions. There is also the charts where we draw diagrams to represent, graphs to represent our data that we have analyzed. It makes it easier for the reader to pick information which is important. Not everyone will understand numbers, some will prefer visuals, hence the charts come in handy. So the objectives of this course is for you to be able to create a table in Excel, to change the table formats, to sort and filter table data, and to use formula with tables. An example of such formulas would be the total rows, the average, and you can then find that these are now at a button click. I'll encourage you to go to the task which is on the dataset that you've been given for examples and carry out the example so that you familiarize yourself with creating tables, changing your formats, branding them to the colors of your organization so that when you present reports for analysis that you will have done, they come already showing that these documents are for this particular company which has got these color themes. You do not just send reports which do not reflect the branding of your company when you are sending corporate reports. Also, when your reports come in with sort and filtering functionalities, they help the reader to quickly pick the information that they're interested in at that point in time without requesting you to continuously assist them. Pivot tables are a special type of a table in Excel. It allows you to extract significance from a large detailed dataset. Where there are repetition, there appears to be repetition, like you can have quarterly sales of a particular product across different countries. So the product will appear in country A, in country B, in country C, and all. But you could have thousands and thousands of all those records about those similar products. You could summarize that data by using a pivot table where it can then show you either a row by column the sales per particular quarter per particular country. You can also apply filters to your pivot tables so that at any one point in time you can see a particular group of dataset, or you can show all the items available in your dataset, all summarized even into even half a page from several lines of Excel, thousands and thousands of records. You can reduce that data into just a small table which has got all the information, meaningful and easy to analyze and make decisions out of it. You need to be able to make two-dimensional pivot tables to be able to sort and to include formula in your calculation on things like your average, your sum, your count, depending on the problem that you are trying to solve. I'll encourage you once again to visit the spreadsheet examples and carry out the tasks that you've been assigned. Charts make data visual. Instead of having to analyze columns of worksheets numbers, you can see at a glance what that data means. This helps also to make quick, informed decisions on huge data sets that have got lots of numbers, difficult for one to get meaning out of. A chart can easily summarize everything in just one small diagram. You need to be able to create a chart, change the chart legend, the chart title, change between rows and columns. These are the objectives of this course. All this, you'd find that it's something that you easily be able to do by the use of the Excel inbuilt help function at button click. You are encouraged to follow the examples on charts in your Excel spreadsheet for examples that have been given to you. The solver add-in. This is one of the tools that is used in Excel but does not come in already enabled for many users. Only those who have had a chance to use it to solve their business problems will have it activated on their menu. For you to activate it, you need to go under Excel Options. If you have gone to Excel Options, you will be able to activate it under the available add-ins. The goal seek is one of those part of the solver add-in tools that you find in Excel. There are examples in your spreadsheet that you will also need to follow in order to be able to solve the problems that are of the form of what-if analysis. Under your data tab in Excel, you will find that we've got your what-if analysis, you've got your goal seek, you've got your data table, which we shall use later in the duration of this course when we're doing our Monte Carlo scenarios, and you also have got the scenario manager. On the far right, when we have activated your solver, you'd find that you have the solver add-in. The solver add-in is the one that we mentioned earlier on that doesn't come by default, but it's for those users who have utilized it before. You can use it for solving optimization problems where you want to either maximize profits or minimize cost with some um, objective function that you are solving for with certain constraints to consider. So if you have dealt with the optimization problems, here you have an inbuilt way of solving those problems using the solver add-in. There is an example that you can carry out together with the scenarios that have been given in your Excel spreadsheet to solve this problem using CalSig. The data analysis toolpack is yet another functionality which is not commonly used. This one offers statistical analysis within Excel. Not every problem will require you to invest in huge statistical software packages like your SPSS, your Statas, and many more other on the market. Some of the problems we face in our day-to-day lives can easily be solved using Microsoft Excel Data Analysis Toolpack. Once you have activated it using the same Excel options, you'll be able to find it on your menu under the data on the far right. In it, you'll be able to carry out problems like your descriptive statistics, you can carry out regression modeling, you can carry out many more other correlations, multi-collinearity tests on your data sets. You can carry out many more other statistical problem solving techniques that you wanted to do, but you don't have the right software. These can easily be done in your Excel. We have got an example for modeling in our Excel spreadsheet that I'd like you to do at your time. Carry out the real business application of Solver as part of the course objectives is on page 6 of your notes. These are some of the smaller examples that you can use to appreciate how the Solver add-in works. The solutions are already provided to test your understanding. There is a menu that will provide you with all the security levels for protection, as we shall see during our live lessons and examples that we're going to carry out. Just take note that it is best practice that you protect your formula, your workbooks, especially when they're carrying critical organization information, as you transmit them so that nobody is able to access and change what you intend to communicate, and the recipient reads it in a different manner altogether than your intended use. Let's move on to Monte Carlo calculations. Monte Carlo calculation simulations, they produce distributions of possible outcome values by using probability distributions. Variables can have different probabilities of different outcomes occurring. Probability distributions are much more realistic ways of describing uncertainty in variables of a risk analysis. Let's look at situations. Let's say you want to predict one's future investment. How will it turn out to be, say, 30 years from today? You may only know the current rates of interest, the current risk associated with that investment, but it's difficult to predict what it will be like in the future. It is in such cases where we're solving those long-term problems that we're starting now, but want to predict how they will be in the future without knowing how the future will turn out to be like. The future has got a lot of possibilities. Interest rates can go down, they can go extremely high, they can fluctuate on a daily basis. They go stable one week and the other week they've gone very high. We've got some risk, political risk, economic risk. A lot of things can happen in that, say, period of 30 years. But how can you, as a financial engineer, guide your potential client on a likelihood of a particular investment yielding profit or loss over such a long period of time. That's when you need to come up with these Monte Carlo simulations to help you predict how a future investment can be like, taking into account all the risk associated with such an investment as of today, but predicting the behavior into the future. We've got this algorithm that we will share for us to be able to carry out Monte Carlo simulations for any problem that we will face in real life, like I've just explained. You need to be able to create a parametric model. How does your dependent variable relate with the independent variables at play? Once you have got that model which is defined, you need to be able to generate a set of random inputs of your parameters. These are the xi's. In our case of the example I explained, that could be your interest rate, that could be your risk, which is things that you know as of now, but you don't know how they will be in the future. There is then the aspect of randomness to say it may be 2 today, tomorrow the interest rate may be 20%, the other day it can be 12.2. You need to come up with a set of random inputs. You then need to evaluate the model and store the results of your dependent variable. This process will continue for step 2 and 3 for a large number of iterations. These iterations are the ones that will help you get values that converge to some stable sort of input. Then you could be able to then say, with some level of confidence, my dependent variable is likely to take this pattern in the next 30 years, having carried out several iterations. There could be 5,000 simulations, 10,000 simulations, depending on the nature of the problem that you are solving. At the end of this simulation, you can then analyze your data set using your histograms, summary statistics, confidence intervals, the quartiles, and all. You can then safely conclude knowing how the dependent variable will behave into the future, and you can give your client meaningful advice. There is an example for a Monte Carlo simulation problem as part of our notes that we'll carry out in class. Let's attempt to do it before the live sessions, and we'll take it from there. Let's move on to the aspect of interfaces in Excel. Here, I want to be able to merge cells, fill cells, format borders, conditional formatting, where you're talking of color-coded data sets. You don't want, you want the cells which are so good to come out green. You want those ones which are so bad, less than the threshold, maybe to come out red, so that the reader is able to pick meaning out of your report at a glance. We'll also talk about external data input to Excel, where you've got data that can come from another system. It can come from a text file. It can come from a PDF document, but you also want to analyze it in your Microsoft Excel. We'll also talk about data validation. Data validation, these days we're in the world of social media. Reports are even coming up with the smileys to express that we had a good sales week. We could have our sales coming up with happy smileys or with those ones that are sad, so that we are able to give to the reader exactly what they want to see in a snapshot. We'll also touch on hyperlinks, how to interlink our spreadsheets, that is our worksheet. If you've got a lot more worksheets on your workbook, maybe 10 or 15, and there are figures in one worksheet that are interlinked to another one within the same workbook or within the same document that you want to share, you can then link up these using hyperlinks. Most of the formatting functions, you will find them on the home tab. That's where you can do your merge and center, you can do your wrap text. I encourage you to use the dataset that has been provided to play around with some of those functionalities on the home tab, even using your borders on your table so that they look beautiful and more illustrative of the message that you sail through. You can then also do things like your filling your cells with different color codes depending on what you want the reader to pick. If you want a particular set of data to have a particular color, this is where you can bring in color coded tables in Excel. Be careful, however, to choose those colors that will not distort the reader from getting the information that they want to get, maybe because they are too bright to their eyesight, or they're not standard or commonly used colors for many other reasons. We have to keep it simple, straightforward, and ensuring that there is meaning in the same report. You also have to look at your formatting of your borders. There are different options that you find there under the borders in the home tab menu. You'd find a lot more options. You need to try all those and find out what suits your data for any particular type of formatting that you want to do. As mentioned, you can then have some of these rules applied to your final analysis, where you want some color shades and some color scales. Maybe for sales less than $10, if your threshold was $10, you want them to be red. For those greater than $10, you want them to be green, and so on. This comes in under conditional formatting, which is also on the home tab. Data validation is yet another important aspect of Excel, where you're going to be collecting data. You also want to be able to put in controls where you want a particular cell to store, say, numeric values, that is sales values. You want it to keep someone's date of birth. You want to keep someone's gender, male or female, only as options. All those are possible using the data validation sub-menu in Excel. This is found under the main menu of data, and then there is a data validation menu. We shall carry out an example. As we conclude our Excel lesson, we'll look also at hyperlinks. Hyperlinks are those items I mentioned earlier that will help us to link from one worksheet to the other, from one cell to the other, and make it easy for the reader to maneuver and to move and get more detail from the worksheets that have been all interlinked and connected at button click. We'll do more of these practical examples during our live session, and I thank you for taking time to go through the Excel lesson. Let's meet again at the next lesson.